everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome to my Captain's Log for May 2nd, 2014. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Star Wars. I have been inundated with requests to talk about the Star Wars casting, and also to talk about the end decimation of the Star Wars Expanded Universe. I am going to talk about both of those two things today, and let me begin by saying, as I always do, by prefacing that, as you can tell by my wardrobe, I am not a giant Star Wars fan. I am more of a Star Trek fan than a Star Wars fan. Although I guess it would be unfair to say just based on my wardrobe, because lots of people are both. It is a common misconception that you can't be both a Star Trek fan and a Star Wars fan, even before J.J. Abrams was directing both franchises. And so I'm gonna talk about this as kind of a looser fan of something. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I know all that much about Star Wars, or that I'm this giant, huge Star Wars fan, because I'm not. And so this is going to be the opinions of a casual viewer, and so take all of this as you will. But let's start off with the casting. We got this week a picture of all of the cast and J.J. Abrams sitting around together to read through the script, and it was kind of neat to get to see that. And it looks like what we're getting are pretty much a bunch of newcomers, a bunch of no-namers. Everybody in the cast has a few credits, and I'm talking everybody in the cast besides the alums. Of course, we are getting Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford, but everybody else is pretty much no-namers, with the possible exceptions of Andy Serkis, who was really the only person on this list that I had really heard of. He was Gollum in Lord of the Rings, and then Max von Sydow, who was in The Exorcist, and he's had a pretty illustrious career, but never been a huge A-list actor. And so I think this is kind of a smart way to go. I'll go down the list here in a minute, just in case you've been living under a rock and you're one of the 5 people in the universe that doesn't already know all these people and what credits they've done. But in case you didn't actually go look up these people and you didn't look at a list where somebody did, I'll go down the list for you. But before I do that, I just want to mention that I think this is actually kind of a smart way to go. Hopefully all of these people are really very talented actors and actresses, and I'm sure they are. Well, actors and an actress. But I think, but anyway, so I think that it is kind of smart to go that way. I'm glad there's not any stunt casting here. I'm glad we don't have any Samuel L. Jacksons or anything like that. Or if we were to get that, at the very least, you would hope that they got to play somebody really cool that they, were the right fit for, and that it couldn't be somebody that just anybody in the planet could play, like you had with Mace Windu. But anyway, so it looks like J.J. Abrams is kind of going back to the original formula, with Star Wars, where he's getting relative no-namers that can embody these roles, and that we won't be like thinking about the actor while we're watching it, and then that might jumpstart their careers. It almost certainly will. It's kind of surreal to me, especially in this day and age, to see this many actors I've really never heard of in what will probably be the biggest movie of 2015. And like, we had a little bit of that with Avengers, but at least you had a couple of A-listers, and at least with that movie, everybody had been in, with the exception, I guess, of Hulk. His name is escaping me right now. It will come to me, but with the exception of the guy who played Bruce Banner, everybody else had already been in some Marvel movies, and so they weren't new yet. Those movies were already getting them more on the map. But then also, you had Samuel L. Jackson, and you had Scarlett Johansson, and you had Robert Downey, and so of course Mark Ruffalo. There it is. But so of course you did have some A-list actors there. Interestingly, the only people that are even close in this movie so far, it looks like, and I don't think that they're quite done casting, is the alums, and they more or less also started out that way. So anyway, I actually think this is really a good thing that we've got relative no-namers. Just running down the list here, we've got John Boyega, who is really kind of a nobody. He got some critical acclaim for Attack the Block, which I've not seen but heard good things about, and he is interestingly going to be in 24 Live Another Day, which is coming out starting this coming week, and I'm going to be doing a podcast series on that, so I will be watching him like a hawk, and I bet everybody else will too. He's going to be the guy people are really looking at in that show. Daisy Ridley, who is a brand new actress. She's only got a couple of credits over the last couple of years. Adam Driver was in Lincoln, some TV show called Girls that I've never heard of that he was in for a couple of seasons, and Law and Order. Law and Order seems to be a recurring motif with some of these actors, although I find that when I'm looking up actors, Law and Order shows up a lot because there's different ones of them, and because it's that kind of show that that is just a magnet for guest stars because of the kind of thing that it is. But anyway, Oscar Isaac, Sucker Punch, and but he's also been in Robin Hood, and he's also been in Law and Order. And then Andy Serkis, as I said, was Gollum in Lord of the Rings. I think it's almost a foregone conclusion that he'll probably be some kind of CGI character. I would be very surprised if he wasn't, given his background. And I would figure that's probably why he was brought on. Hopefully nothing like a Jar Jar Binks. Dom Hall Gleason played Bill Weasley in Harry Potter. He was in Dredd and he was in True Grit. He's gotten some kind of minor supporting roles. Seems like an okay actor to me. I mean, I said that that only Andy Serkis was the only person that I had really heard of on this list. I mean, I guess I've seen him, this guy, in a couple of things, but kind of forgot all about him. So anyway, we'll see what he's like, I guess. And then Max von Sydow was, like I said, in The Exorcist. He was in Minority Report, Shutter Island, the recent Robin Hood, and which I haven't seen, but I don't know what that was like. But anyway. And he also voiced Vigo in Ghostbusters 2. So anyway, who knows who these people are going to play yet? We can make various speculations. I would bet you money that Max von Sydow is going to be some kind of a villain. He just kind of has that face. And he's the only older gentleman that was cast in this. I would be really surprised if he was some kind of a good guy character, given that we really don't have any Jedi in this world at this point, unless over the last 30 years we've had a lot of Jedi. And come to think of it, I bet that it's likely that that's what they do. But like it would be strange if he was like a Jedi type character. So I don't know. He looks like to be likely one of, if not the big villain of the piece. But I mean, I'm just spitballing. We don't really know yet. There have been a lot of complaints that there aren't any women in this cast. Save two, and one of them is Carrie Fisher, and everybody thinks that the other one is very likely to be Princess Leia's daughter, so really we've just got, a couple of Leias, and that's about it. Female Star Wars fans have been sandblasting Abrams for this, apparently, and Abrams shot back that he's casting another character that is going to be a woman, but I can understand why people are up in arms about this. And again, it's a couple of things. It's a traditional sort of thing because Star Wars has never had a lot of female characters. This is a really good time to change that, and in the expanded universe, there are lots of interesting female Star Wars characters from what little I've looked at, and it did seem like a really good time to kind of, move forward and get a little bit more progressive with that. I don't think it's a bad idea to have kind of a times have changed motif with this movie and reflect that with real world stuff too, where in the real world now we can have more strong female characters, and it's not weird, and we don't, I don't know, in theory, on paper anyway, we don't have as much of a man's world. And so since we're going 30 years in the future with Star Wars, why can't we also do that in Star Wars? There was an article I read that made a really good point about Battlestar Galactica and said, they in that show, they recast Starbuck as a girl, and fans of that show, of that original show, got really up in arms about it, and then it ended up being the right move, and she was ultimately a whole lot more popular than the original Starbuck, and the article was questioning why we haven't moved, why in the last 10 years since that show, because it's been that long, why we haven't seen more of that sort of progress. Not saying that everything has to be like with every franchise you have to start recasting characters and making them girls, but just to say that, especially when you're making up new characters, why can't you have some more strong women thrown in the mix? And I agree with that, and I want to be surprised by it, but I'm not, because it's J.J. Abrams, and he is notorious for this kind of thing. He's notorious for not being very good at writing female characters, and with Star Trek he kind of got a pass because he was dealing with an original cast that didn't have a lot of women in it, and so he would have to start making up a lot of people, and so. Yeah, he added Carol Marcus in Wrath of Khan, he might have, yeah. Slip of the tongue, Freudian slip there. He added Carol Marcus from Wrath of Khan into Star Trek Into Darkness, but she didn't get a whole lot to do, and there's just not a lot of strong female characterization in those movies. Uhura is basically just a token love interest character. So anyway, I'm not surprised by this, but it is kind of unfortunate, and I guess we'll see what happens with it. But considering he didn't actually write the initial script, maybe that's one of the reasons that people are more surprised that there aren't more females in the cast. Anyway, let me briefly talk a little bit about the expanded universe and how I feel about that. Now, as I said, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. I haven't been following expanded universe very much at all. And it's something that I keep meaning to dip my feet in and look more at, and especially, I'm told all the time, Thrawn Trilogy, read the Thrawn Trilogy. And I haven't done that yet. And now I'm told it's not canonical, and that's really kind of unfortunate. But that doesn't mean that I won't read it. And I think the first thing I should probably say about this is that just because something becomes decanonicized doesn't take away the artistic merit of it and doesn't make it any less necessarily entertaining or enjoyable. But on the other hand, it can take away some of that enjoyment because it informed a world and maybe made certain things better, or you appreciated them more because you understood them better because of the supplemental material. I'm going to compare this to Star Trek for a minute because I don't think there's any way to get around that, especially because this is J.J. Abrams directing these, and because it's my main point of reference. So I feel like Star Trek fans actually got the better end of the deal on this at the end of the day. And the reason I say that is because none of our stuff got decanonicized. Yeah, it kind of got paved over with a new timeline, but it all officially happened. And I always point back to that line that Nero has in the 2009 Star Trek movie when he says, "Don't tell me it didn't happen, it happened." And I always thought that was somewhat kind of for the fans, throwing us a bone a little bit and saying, we haven't taken your continuity away, it's a sequel that takes place in the past. And so everything that was ever canon for Star Trek is still canon. It wasn't a straight-up reboot. Now, I always said that those movies would be better if it was just a straight-up reboot, because Abrams and his team did that so that they wouldn't have to be slaves to continuity. But then the continuity that they actually kept intact, they still couldn't even keep straight. So it was somewhat of a convoluted mess in that way. But with Star Wars, it's tougher because they're actually taking away the last couple decades, I guess closer to 3 decades now, they're actually 3 decades now of continuity, and telling people that stuff that they loved and cherished and cared about never happened. And I'm really empathetic towards Star Wars fans on this. I've heard some Star Wars fans trying to make their peace with it, trying to be really objective about this and saying, well, I can totally see why they're doing that. You don't want them to have to be slaves to the continuity. How could they possibly make Trek 7, 8, and 9 without stepping on the toes of the expanded universe. And I mean, I applaud those people for being level-headed like that, but at the same time, I think this is sort of like a death in the family, and it's okay to mourn it too. I really do. And again, I feel like I'm talking about like somebody else's grandfather who died that I never met, because I haven't really read or been invested in a whole lot of this continuity. But let me tell you what it makes me kind of think of. It feels a lot like if you were to say only certain Star Trek movies were canon, but all the TV shows weren't canon anymore. Or like everything but TOS. Like imagine that. You know, imagine people growing up with Star Trek The Next Generation and then being told that it never counted at all. And that's what it's got to be like for some fans with the expanded universe, because for the last couple of decades, Star Wars has primarily not been in films. And that's the big difference between the two franchises, is that with Star Wars, and I always thought this was weird growing up, I'll make no bones about it, I always thought it was weird that so much stuff was canon with Star Wars, and I didn't understand how it could be taken, how it could all fit together and work and be continuous. And I also just didn't see how anybody could keep up with all of it, and it would be kind of nigh impossible. But it's an expanded universe. There are all of these characters that you get on screen for like 5.5 seconds in the Star Wars movies, and all of this extra stuff creates new characters and also fleshes a lot of those people out. And so with Star Trek, it's a lot easier to accept the only things that are canon are on screen, because there's so much of it. There's 700 episodes. There are now 12 movies. It's so much easier to do that. But it's also more digestible, because there's a lot of it, but you can more easily digest it. You can watch all of it. It's all in one place, and especially now because you can watch it all on Netflix and stuff. It's all in one place. But with Star Wars, that's a lot tougher. You take away all the expanded universe, and all you're left with is the stuff that's on screen, and you've got all of these people that are Star Wars experts, and so much of their knowledge doesn't matter anymore. You're talking about entire worlds and species and characters and lineages and history that no longer counts. And that's got to be infuriating for those people, because how could they possibly separate it out? I mean, with Star Trek, you've got all of those peripheral books and things, and there's a lot of extra supplemental stuff there that you kind of wish was canon, because certain characters and things get fleshed out. But you always knew where you stood with that with Star Trek. You could get really invested in that stuff and enjoy these other continuities, but you knew that in the grand scheme of things, that Paramount didn't consider them canon. They don't count as canon. But with Star Wars, you don't have that. So I had a conversation last night with Steve Baxi and with Superhero Enthusiast about this, and Steve brought up a really good point when he said that, well, this has been happening for a while now. We can't just blame Abrams and just blame this new project for decanonicizing things, because this was already going on with the Clone Wars TV show, and that George Lucas comes in and says the Clone Wars TV show is canon and everything that it contradicts is not canon, which had to be really confusing for people, because it was like this kind of pick and choose thing. It's like, okay, watch the show, and if it contradicts something that you saw before in a book or a video game or a comic book, this thing trumps that. And he was also talking about how there were always various layers to Star Wars canon, like kind of the 3 laws of robotics, where you'd have one that trumps another one, so it counts until something else trumps it that counts more. So you got the movies, and then you have other things that are kind of underneath that. But what we've got going on now is kind of the final nail in the coffin, where instead of just having, these multiple layers to the continuity, they've just kind of straight up completely simplified it so that Abrams and his team don't have to worry about all that continuity, and said that everything is now not canon except for what's on screen. And so what I've read is that the Star Wars Clone Wars TV show, I still hate that title, it's such a mouthful, Star Wars The Clone Wars, is canon, and the new cartoon show they're about to do, animated show, whatever that is canon, and they're starting a new book series that is canon, and the movies are canon. And that's it. And another thing that I'm hearing from a lot of Star Wars fans is we just wish there was some kind of an end to it. We just wish that the expanded universe could have been wrapped up in some way so that we could kind of move on and just see this as sort of like a new, a new chapter. It's its own universe, and the expanded universe at least wouldn't be left hanging. I guess I agree with that. I think. Fuzz or something. I guess I agree with that. I guess that's totally valid. But I also feel like the movies, especially the prequels, get really uneven without some of that expanded universe stuff, right? Like, again, with Star Trek, at least you had so much of it. There weren't a lot of gaps that needed to be filled by peripheral material. But what's with all the time that happens between episodes 5 and 6? You like I haven't seen much of Clone Wars, so maybe this is handled there, but like I didn't understand what in the world General Grievous was when I watched episode 6. And then Star Wars and then I'm sorry, what am I talking about? Episode 3, episodes 2 and 3. You've got all of this. You've got all this time that happens between those two movies, between Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. And then Cartoon Network puts out this animated show also called Star Wars: The Clone Wars. This is well before that the computer CGI show started, and it filled in a lot of blanks, and I felt like they had so much time between those two movies. And by the way, I'm really hoping that with the new trilogy, we don't have a lot of time between the films like we did with the original trilogy, that like it feels like a cohesive piece where one movie goes directly into the next movie, or at least very, very close. There's a little bit of time between 3 and 4, but not or between 4 and 5. Wow, numbers today. There's a little bit of time between 4 and 5. So, but I'm hoping that it's not like this giant gap, because when I watched that Cartoon Network Clone Wars show, all of a sudden, and by the way, it's just also really a lot better written than I think than the prequels are. But like I watched that, and then I was like, oh, that's what General Grievous is. That's what some of these other things are, and it made that movie better because I felt like you needed it first. I felt like it was like episode 2.5 or something. So we're losing things that greatly informed that universe. I feel really bad for Boba Fett fans. Boba Fett had this, like, apparently, allegedly, as I've been told, had like this huge mythology and history, and it's all gone now. And yeah, they're gonna make new movies. I mean, they're going to make things outside of episodes 7, 8, and 9, and there's going to apparently be a new Star Wars movie every year, and so at least there's going to be an expanded universe on film. They're throwing us a bone there. That's good. They're going to be able to flesh out those characters, but it better be good. It better be really good, because you've got all these fans of characters that everything they loved is gone now. Like Aura Singh. She's now 5.5 seconds in a movie. That's it. Sorry, Aura Singh fans. You think you know that character now? She's a bounty hunter standing in the background. That's it. I hope they never did anything with Shmi Skywalker in the expanded universe, because now I don't know all that much about her. So anyway, I don't know. It's rough. I think that episode 7 is going to be scrutinized a lot harder now. Like, I think Star Wars fans at large, because again, you're just taking away what they feel like they've been invested in for years and years and years, and some of them for decades. So this movie is going to, in my opinion, be the single most scrutinized movie in the history of fandom, because you've basically taken away all this stuff that people loved and replaced it with this. And if it's not really spot on, if it's not super spot on, it's going to get sandblasted. It's gonna get crucified. And I mean, I'm fascinated to see how it goes. I'm very excited for this movie. I always hoped that 7, 8, and 9 would manage to somehow or rather miraculously happen in my lifetime. I always wanted that. And what little stuff from the expanded universe that I've seen from that, especially, there was a video game I played on the Nintendo 64, I think it was called Shadows of the Empire, that I liked a lot and thought, oh man, some of this stuff would make for great movies going forward. I really wish that they would do that. Now we're getting that. That's really exciting. And as I said, I don't really have a huge dog in this fight, but boy, the more I think about it, the more I just feel like Star Wars fans got screwed on this. And also, I'm a little bit worried about what's going to happen comic book wise, because we just lost the Star Wars license at Dark Horse. I worked there. Dark Horse just lost the Star Wars license. They were doing a lot of fantastic stuff over there. I have read a little bit of that here and there, and I just feel bad for a lot of those writers where all their stuff's not canon anymore. And then what's Marvel gonna do? Surely they're gonna publish Star Wars comics. We all know that Star Wars comics sell, but like, they got the Disney, like when Disney bought out Marvel, all of their Disney books left Boom, and then they didn't really do anything with them at Marvel. They never started anything out. Now those didn't sell super well, so that's not the best example, but it's not gonna be like Dark Horse. You're not gonna have 3 or 4 Star Wars books running at any given point, probably. And I really doubt that they fleshed things out like they've been doing, where they can go. I mean, they just had carte blanche before. They could do whatever they wanted to. So they'd go all the way back to the beginning of time. There was apparently a book recently that was like Dawn of the Jedi, I think it was what it was called. It was just like all the early creation of everything, like what the earliest Jedis were like, and all of that, and it sounded really fascinating. And then, you know, they could go all the way back, they could go all the way forward. I don't know that you're gonna get that kind of stuff as much anymore. So anyway, I am really empathetic towards Star Wars fans that are upset about this, and I hope it all ultimately works out. I hope what we get is freaking fantastic, and at least we're getting movies every year, unlike Star Trek, where I gotta wait for 4, and then also don't even really feel like it's very Star Trek, even though I'm enjoying them. So I you know, at least Star Wars fans are going to get more screen stuff if their other things aren't canon. But I still feel like, as far as what came from before, Star Trek fans got the better end of the deal on this, and I feel bad about that. I don't think that's fair. So anyway, what do you guys think about all this? What do you think about the casting? I guess I've been going on for a while, but there was a lot here. So what do you think about the casting? What do you think about the end of the expanded universe? Leave comments. Let me know what you think, and I will prepare myself to be educated, because I'm sure that there will be many things in the comments where people will either correct me on things or tell me about things I didn't know about, because I just don't know this topic all that well. So anyway, leave comments. Looking forward to reading them, and thanks as always for watching my Captain's Log. I will see you again very shortly, and this concludes my Captain's Log.